First of all, nice to be here in Singapore. This has been, as Winnie said, maybe 5th or 6th time. And since beginning, there has been lots of developments. And now it has taken a shape of a Dhamma Center where the teachings are going on and then people are practicing, which is the main core element of teaching centers or Dhamma centers. Dhamma Center, because we have here both lay and monastics. So the monasteries or the Dhamma centers can be center of the Dhamma only when there are both the teachings and practices going on incessantly. Because without the teaching and practice, there is no essence of the Dhamma, no essence of the Buddha's, the Shasana, which is the Buddha's doctrine or the teaching lineage. When the teaching lineage comes, then it comes together with the transmission of the spirituality. Without the transmission of spirituality, it does not serve the purpose of the teaching. Buddha gave teachings, and according to Mahayana, it is the belief that Buddha came on earth as a manifestation of the Buddha in order to complete his deeds, not as a common person who first, took birth and then eventually became Buddha. But the Buddha's deed of enlightenment in Bodh Gaya and the previous deeds, and of course the later deeds, are the deeds of the Buddha to be manifested on this earth for the benefit of all sentient beings. So this is why Buddha came on this earth, why he manifested, is because to benefit the sentient beings of different dispositions, abilities. Everyone cannot be of same kind of mentality. Everyone cannot be of same capability. That is why we find different kinds of Buddha's teachings, right? Different kinds of Buddha's teachings. Teachings related to a small scope person, teachings related to middle scope person, teachings related to the great scope person. And that is quite understandable. Even in our colleges and universities, we have, right from the school's time, we have different, scopes. Those who have a greater scope, they go to PhD, doing research. And those who have a medium scope, they do up to graduate or something like that. Those who have a small scope, then they do up to high school or something like that. But they do it, and then according to that, they live their life. And then again, after, there are many people, of course, maybe in Singapore, in the West and Australia, Europe and America, many places. After leaving the school, then they join their, work. And then after some time, they feel that, I should do further studies. They come back to university and college, do their further studies. So, similarly, it is quite, natural with the human tendencies that initially they may feel that, this much is enough for me. But later, then due to environment and acquiring many informations, then they change their mind that, I should do further studies. Or the small school person may also feel that, I should to further studies and to the medium scope. And even reaching there, then they feel that, oh, I should go further and do, practice for the benefit of all sentient beings, and thus take Bodhisattva's vow and then to practice accordingly. So this is according to the human mentality that Buddha's different, types of teachings are found according to the mental capabilities. So these are taught. These, the Agama traditions, the teaching lineage should be there, uninterruptedly coming to this age. Not that, a teacher, he self-studied and then started teaching. Of course, this can be done to some extent, but not in totality, right? Because every text has, let us give an example of the Mool Madhyamika Karika. You all know Mool Madhyamika Karika, what is the name of the fundamental wisdom of emptiness. No, fundamental wisdom of middle path maybe, yeah. So let us take that example then, just to give you a feeling, right? Nagarjuna studied the entire corpus of Buddha's teachings, learned from his teachers, studied with his colleagues, with the rich environment, and practiced it, and out of his understanding, out of his realization, and out of the wisdom that he received through his teachers, and the practice that he, did, and the realizations that he obtained, out of that, then he wrote this text, which can be said as a compendium of the entire, the Wisdom Sutras. The Wisdom Sutras are vast and huge, right? So he condensed it and then projected the philosophical aspect of the entire text of the Buddha in the sutras of the Buddha, of the Sutra of Wisdom. And in that he has projected what Buddha taught in terms of the emptiness, the dependent arising, and then how, through hundreds of reasonings, then he, presented the Madhyamika, or the emptiness view of emptiness. So that he did through study, contemplation, and meditation, the teaching lineage that he received from his teachers, and the realization that he, obtained through practice, right? So, when we see the text is, now let us give an example of, the transmission coming into Tibetan language. When it was translated into Tibetan language, then it was not done randomly or just consulting a single, person. The teachings they received from very authentic teachers, scholars, and then it was translated word to word, with the literal, maintaining the literal meaning, and retaining the thematic meaning. So it is retained in Tibetan language with such, authenticity that the content is retained in totality, right? And the people who are involved in translation are also highly qualified, both in terms of the thematic meaning and the literal meaning, right? So like that, the text was translated. Now you have in front of you the text, right? So therefore, whenever you read a text or book, you should, if it is a novel, if it is a story, then that is fine. If so long as you enjoy that, that is fine. But so long as it is a spiritual practice or something serious matter, then you would, search who has written this, what are the sources, and who have been involved, what is the tradition, or from where, what are the sources. If it is a research related to a particular, a modern kind of, subject matter, or say, like, for example, the research on a particular issue, then everybody would say, they would search the authenticity of the research, right? Getting to knowing the person who are involved, their authenticity, their resources, and things like that. So therefore, the text that you have is completely, reliable, that is authentic in terms of the people who are involved in translation and the teaching they received, having full knowledge of the text. Then that is the corporal part of the text, right? Now there is a deeper aspect of the text, that is the knowledge of the text. Everybody can read it, but as we have been reading the 8 negations in the prayer, so it's very profound. That needs a lineage. That needs a teaching transmission that came all the way from Nagarjuna to the teaching transmission, and then up to this day, right? So there is an uninterrupted teaching transmission, which is the content of the text in terms of the knowledge of the text, right? So now we can say that, yes, the knowledge that I received is authentic. Now this is the authenticity. Now there's again a further deeper aspect of level of the text to go, that is the spiritual essence of the text. What is that? You may have knowledge, you may have the intellectual knowledge of the text, but the essence of the text is the meaning of the not only the intellectual knowledge, but the experience of the essence of the text, that is the emptiness and dependent arising, the meaning of the dependent arising, the essence of the dependent arising and emptiness that you can feel, right? That you can realize, even though it is not realization to that extent, but at least there is through contemplation you must get a conviction, right? And after conviction, then you can meditate on it, right? So that is the spiritual level of the text. So I used to say that every text has 3 levels. So now you can see that the 3, you can check the authenticity of the text are authentic, the teaching transmission that you receive is authentic, to what extent it is authentic. And now, when you get it, now it is up to your personal kind of property, that how long you are going to pursue that, how much you can bring that realization into your mental stream. That is the most important, because the very purpose of the text is to generate that kind of realization. If you don't generate and cultivate that kind of realization, then the purpose of study is lost. The purpose of the text is lost, right? So we may have big temples and big monasteries, beautiful, elaborated, fantastic, magnificent, but if the teaching and the spiritual transmission, the practical transmissions are lost, then the very purpose of Buddha's teaching is lost, right? So even if you don't have any kind of monasteries, there is a cave, and then there is a person who is teaching and practicing, there is Buddha Dharma. So Buddha Dharma is more in the practice and in knowledge with the help of the corporal texts, right? So therefore, coming back to your center, here now in center, the teachings are going on regularly, and then people are interested in practicing. And then practice does not mean that everybody should have some kind of light or some kind of high realizations, or right? But if you practice, and day by day, even having a very kind of loving kindness, even for a short while, compassionate mind, that is also practice. That is a teaching transmission and the spiritual practice, because you have an intention to lead it further. It is not just something, oh, I will do that for 1 minute and that's done and now no more, right? So people are practicing. So that is the spiritual lineage or practice which is required to be a center of Dhamma. That if these two are there, then you can say that there is a Dhamma center, right? So you can, and now Dhamma center is a bigger kind of community or association organization. Now you can see whether you have the Dharma in you, within yourself. You study, contemplate, and then you have those spiritual kind of qualities developing, in the process of developing. You have started. Are you making attempt, right? And to what extent you are making attempt, and that differs from one person to another person in terms of degrees, right? But we must make effort. The effort is, that is why perseverance in Buddhism is very, very important. It is one of the 6 perfections, right? Perseverance is, you should always make attempt to do that, right? So this is something that is very important. Whether or not Dhamma exists or not, it depends totally on these 2 elements, right? Now you can understand whether to what extent you have these elements, and Buddha Dharma exists within yourself or not. You do not need to go somewhere and ask, do I have Buddha Dharma? The parameter is within yourself. You are more, you yourself is the evidence for that, right? You can see. So I'm glad that here with the Geshe Ngawang Samten-la as the regular Dhamma teacher here, has been giving programs on regular basis, and then many people are, and also there are the other Dhamma centers in Singapore. It's a small country, but so many Dhamma centers, right? It's wonderful to see, and also to see everybody in a very harmonious kind of situation. That is also a very important thing, right? So with these words, I would like to appreciate the work which is being done here. And just a couple, before I left India on 3rd, and I thought that I should share that story with you. On 2nd of November, there was India's National Academy of Scientists, the 84th meeting. It was established before India's independence, and it was 84th meeting. And the meeting took place in Banaras Hindu University, one of the largest Indian universities. And they asked me to speak on Buddhism and science, because now people have this kind of, what is going on with Buddhism and science. And so I was asked to speak, and then I thought that it is better to give some background of, because the scientists most of them are not aware of what Buddhism is, and then what it has to do with Buddhism, and why there is some kind of modern, in modern age, there is some kind of, meeting points with the Buddhism and science. So I gave a kind of a very long story starting from Buddha and Buddha's very skeptic attitude, and his very liberal kind of thinking, allowing his disciples to accept or not accept his teachings through examining his teachings, like a goldsmith does the test of the gold. And then from there, Buddha's basic kind of revolution that he brought in Indian civilization in terms of philosophy and spirituality, that was really a very big kind of fundamental revolution in India. You must be knowing that in India there were many philosophical schools, not just one. So there were Sankhyas and Vedic schools, the Vedanta schools, Vaisheshik schools, Mimamsak schools, all philosophical schools, quite profound schools. And then Buddha, gave teaching about the selflessness, which was really kind of a new idea that was thrown on the platform of the philosophical the ground, and which was very strongly reacted by all of the schools of that time. And then his philosophy of independent arising, his philosophy of impermanence, and these were all, and then he rejected the creatorship, which Jaina also rejects, and then the part of Sankhya also rejects that. But so far as impermanence and the selflessness is concerned, no one had similar kind of philosophical stance. So that was a kind of, I won't go into detail, but that was a kind of a very revolutionary kind of approach or teaching that Buddha gave, and that really shook the land of the Indian philosophical system. And in the similar manner, the spirituality that Buddha introduced to us, transformation of the person rather than performing rites and rituals. And because at that time, following the Indian Vedic tradition, if you perform this much and that much, and particularly sacrifices, horse, 1,100, 100,000, things like that, of sacrifice of horse and cows and elephants and things like that, then you would have this kind of results. And then if you, perform this kind of rites, then you would have this kind of, fruits and things like that. So he rejected, and then said that the transformation, the spirituality should be based on the transformation of the mind rather than any kind of external, activities. So all these brought a big change in Indian spiritual system. Eventually, great monastic institutions got established like Nalanda, Vikramashila, Takshashila. I'm telling this to so that you may know more about this. And these great monastic institutions became the center of learning, which led the entire Indian intellectual kind of the exercise enterprise to a great height by having interaction with other schools, Vaisheshika, all the schools that I said earlier, all the 6 schools. And then there were very strong interactions among them, and the philosophical schools that Buddhism had within itself were 4 major schools, and then there are sub-schools and sub-schools, and each have a very profound philosophical system. And at the same time, then they had interaction with the non-Buddhist Indian schools, and within the Buddhist school themselves, they had a very strong interaction. So interactions were through logical and the interaction, and the system of logic developed to a very sophisticated stage, and similarly the epistemology. The system of epistemology got developed. So these were the instruments to have a deeper insight into philosophical understanding, right? And then the analytical approach in terms of understanding the reality. The entire purpose of the philosophical pursuit was to understand the reality of different levels, right? According to the different schools. So I narrated those schools, and then the entire school, the system of Nalanda and Vikramshila, Takshashila, went to Tibet. And there it went, the whole system went with the text, with the knowledge system, with the spiritual transmission. And in a way, it went with the, I used to tell that the entire system got transplanted to Tibet. And then, fortunately, by the time India, from India's land, Buddhism disappeared in the mainland. By that time, in Tibet, it was already established, taken root. And the Tibetan masters have started, writing commentary and then independent texts. And then total number of around 5,000 texts were translated into Tibetan language, mainly from Sanskrit and other languages as Prakrit and Pali and Abhabharansha. But more than 90% of, no more, we can say more, around 95% of the texts were translated from Sanskrit. And not only Buddhism, but also the general common subjects like arts, poetry, grammar, dramaturgy, and and many astrology, astronomy, and things like that were also got translated, and the entire discipline got the transplanted in Tibet. So in Tibet, the monasteries, hundreds and thousands of monasteries were there, and then those monasteries became the center of learning and center of knowledge, from where the great number of researches took place, very serious researches took place. If you look into the works of the great masters, then you can find that in the philosophical, in epistemology and logic, and in tantra and many other fields of area, the research which was done by the Nalanda masters was taken forward by the Tibetan masters. So there was a time, it is, we find in history that there was a time that all the valleys were full of monasteries where the studies were going on, and in the high mountains, all the caves were filled by the hermits. And the vibration of the monasteries can be seen in the villages, in the town, the lay people, that they receive the teachings from the monasteries. So in a way, the very strong vibration of spirituality was, can be felt. And in Tibetan, we say, Satar Todar, which means that the Buddha Dharma spread on every soil, and even on the soils and the stones. So this can be, if you read the history, then there was a time that the entire focus of the national strength was focused on bringing up the Buddhism from India, and then nurturing it in Tibet. And So this can be seen as the major contribution of Tibetan for the preservation of Nalanda tradition. Had it been not taken from India in that manner, to that extent, with that seriousness, with that depth, then these days we might not be having, the Nalanda tradition with us. So, and then after that, it came to, after 59, it came to India, and then His Holiness had interaction with the scientist, and then I told how the scientist interaction took place and things like that. So they were quite, Indian scientists were saying that it is amazing to hear that, at such a grand level, now within just 30 years of time, such a deep impact is found or has been made within the scientific circle, within the scientific, the world of science, we can say, by the Buddhist, philosophical and Buddhist practice and Buddhist mind, you can say, the science, particularly the Buddhist science of mind and Buddhist the philosophy and epistemology and some part of logic, how deep impact it has made, and within such a short period of time. And so what kind of impacts have been made, and in the neuroscience, in psychology, clinical science, and then we discussed about that and had some question and answer also following that. So for the Indian scientists, they liked, the way they appreciated it a lot, because most of them did not know that this was going on. And there was a great Indian physicist who passed away, and to whom we conferred, my university conferred honorary degree. And in his convocation address, he said that I'm very happy to know that the quantum physics, which is new for the modern physicists, is already, the theory has already been described and explained almost more than 2,000 years back by Nagarjuna, a philosopher, a Buddhist philosopher from India, that too from South India, because he belonged to South India. So it is so nice to, and is proud to see such a thought, in the Indian philosophical system. So we discussed this kind of thing, and really they appreciate it. And now why I tell you this story is because at a very large scale now, Buddhism and the scientific world is having interaction, which is giving a shape to many other things. Not only at the scientific research, but also it is making impact on education, making impact on people's life, making impact on the health organizations, health system, and now in the schools it is being introduced, and it is making a great impact. So eventually this will become certainly a global phenomena. So you should also pay attention on these kind of findings and the interactions that is going on, and what things are coming up. And today we are talking about mindfulness, and now mindfulness has not become a Buddhist kind of phenomena. It has already entered into the medical field. It has already entered into public life. It has already entered into schools, and in many ways. So one day a scientist may say that let us meditate together on mindfulness. Right. So therefore now it is becoming a global phenomena. So that is how I thought that we should know these developments, and you should keep yourself updated on these days with the at your fingertips, you have all the informations, right? That people call the Guru Google, right? So you have the Guru Google with you, and you can find. But as I said, just simply information is not sufficient. But you must have information, and then get the information authentically, and then have it, transform it through contemplation, and then finally convert it into conviction, and then through conviction, then you can meditate on that, right? Okay, with this, now let us go into the mindfulness. So mindfulness, in fact, mindfulness is a very, very vast kind of, subject. It includes everything, every Buddhist, practice. And it is so subtle, and it's also very simple that you can do everywhere, whether you are walking, whether you are eating, whether you are in, kitchen, or in your bedroom, or while you are about to sleep, or you are at work, wherever you go, you can do this practice. And it is not only doable, but it should be done. So mindfulness is not something that you can, take some time out of your busy schedule, either in the morning, mostly in the morning, and do for some time, and then after that you are free from mindfulness, right? So mindfulness, you should carry with you mindfulness all the time. Then it will work, right? And it is very, very useful. And then it can bring changes within yourself. Mindfulness, as I said, it includes your practice in all aspects. This is common with Theravada tradition and Mahayana tradition. And the mindfulness of body, the mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of mind, and mindfulness of Dhamma, right? These 4 areas, they cover the entire world, right? Even the external objects can be included in that, because that is associated with your experience, right? So, we must have experience of doing meditation. And again, meditation, mindfulness is one kind of, meditation, or in a way we can say that every meditation is mindful meditation, right? The way you can define it. So, when you do meditation, mindfulness, then you have an object, and what kind of mind is, meditating, and then with what kind of attitude, and then how you are being mindful, right? And what is the result, what is the immediate result, and what is the ultimate result, right? So for this, the object, in terms of object, the body, the feeling, the mind, and the Dhamma, the phenomena, these are the object. And when we have these objects, then we need to see their characteristics, right? We have to see the characteristics of the objects. There are 2 kinds of characteristics. One is the general characteristics and the specific characteristic, right? So, contemplating on the nature of these phenomena, these 4 objects, contemplating, meditating, being mindful with respect to the general and the specific characteristics, right? So the very purpose of, as you have here, to dispel the perverted views, right? So we have so many perverted views. Not only so many, we are full of perverted views, right? About ourselves, about the world, about the house, about the object. In a way, we can say about everything we perceive, about everything we conceive, we have perverted views. And now we have to correct it. We have to know it as it is. We don't know it, we don't see it as it is, but we see it in a very perverted way. And that is the reason why Buddha, taught mindfulness, right? So with respect to the body, you see, with respect to body, we have so many perverted views. And this has given rise to so many systems, social systems and religious systems as well. Body is pure, right? My body is pure. And then this in India, the caste system, that the Brahmins are, born as from the mouth of the, Brahma and blah, 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 different parts of the, and then the lowest caste is the lowest caste because they are not even, allowed to read the Vedas. They cannot read the Veda. They cannot have access to Veda. That is why it is believed, it is said that the dramas developed in India in ancient time was in order to educate them, because they cannot, since they cannot have direct access to the Vedas, the messages can be given to these, low caste people through drama. So now you can see the, social system that got developed. Now, besides that, in our general, not only the section of people, but in general, people have this understanding or feeling that my body is pure and then my body is perfect. And based on that, we have, fatuations about our own body and the body of other people, right? So bodies are the main source of attractions of oneself and of others as well. So that is why we need to understand the body in order to realize the reality of our body. So that is why Buddha gave teaching on body, right? You understand your body. The way you look at your body and the way you look at others' body, and in a very attractive manner, is not the way it is. So therefore, Buddha said that just to have a look as it is, right? So therefore, Buddha gave teachings of body as impermanence and impurity of body, right? And we, in India, there are many, castes of different kinds of Brahmins. Of course, to some extent, it is appreciated that they maintain the pure in terms of, hygiene, in terms of many other things. But they don't take food from others. They don't take food prepared by others, because it becomes impure for me to take into this body, which is absolutely perfectly pure, right? So with this kind of concept or perceptions, then they have a very strong kind of feeling of having their body, being their body as the perfect and pure, right? So, and then, as I said, in general, people have, a feeling of their perfection, of their perfectness of their body, and attractiveness of their body, and then attractiveness of others' body. So therefore, Buddha gave teaching on paying attention on the impurities of the body, right? Our body is, is full of impure kind of, the entities. It is like as if we have filled with the, blood, pus and all these things in a sack, and it is standing there. In reality, it is that we have to contemplate, It may not be acceptable, but in reality, it is, right? And then if we have this contemplation, it does not mean that you have to throw your body out and neglect your body. It does not mean that. But not to get, too obsessed with your body, not to be infatuated with your body, not to be attracted to others' body, things like that. But to realize the importance of the body and the potentials of the body, use the, have the understanding of the potentials of the body and utilize it for the right purpose, right? But it does not mean that you neglect your body, not at all. Keep it healthy, keep it, sound, and keep it, good looking, but not to spend more time in, making it perfect, as it cannot be made, right? So, when we contemplate on the impurities of the body, then we understand, right? When we look into the body, dissect the body, going through the, going from the skin and then entering into the flesh and entering into the, and muscles, entering into the, and the pus, blood, and entering into the bone and then marrow, and then going into the organs, inner organs of the body, then we can understand the nature of the body, impurity of the body, right? So this is something not to know that, oh yes, this is there. You can have a drawing and then there are medical books through which you can see, right? Not to have an understanding, but to have a feeling, to realize it, to have a feeling which can change your perception, right? That is the main purpose of, this mindfulness of body, right? So we will meditate on this, the mindfulness of impurity of body for 6-7 minutes, okay? For many people, when we talk about meditation, so, to keep your eyes closed and then the meditation starts. But for many, meditation, they do not have a clear idea about meditation. Meditation is a mental work, right? It's a mental exercise. To do exercise on your body or on your mind and then transform. Nothing can transform your mind. There's no power, no instrument, no apparatus so far developed to do exercise on your mind, right? You yourself have to do that. And that has to be done, by managing by yourself. You have to manage, because mind has so many different aspects. And some of the aspects of the mind can be vigilant, while some of the aspect of the mind can make it manage to lead it, and then while some of the aspects of the mind can go through it, because there are so many different aspects of the mind, the mental factors, right? So the most important thing in meditation is the mindfulness, being mindful on what you are meditating, and then the awareness. Or these days there's a new kind of, the word coined in the scientific world, meta-awareness, meta-awareness. So this is very much being talked in neuroscientists and psychologists and cognitive scientists these days. So it is awareness. Sometimes it is, termed as alertness. Sometimes it is termed as inspecting mental factor. Who does the work of intelligence, right? What the mind is doing, is it diverting from where it should be meditating, or it is paying attention on the right object? So this is the awareness, which is being aware of whether your mind is fixed on the object or not, right? And once your mind is mindfully fixed, then these mindfulness and awareness, these are the two major kind of, the mental components, which are, the most important factors for meditation, any kind of meditation. Once you are, advanced, that you do not need to be watched whether your mind is fixed on the object or not, then you do not need these two things, right? You are always, mindful, and then your mind is fixed. So at that point of time, then you do not need. So therefore, in the process of acquiring single-pointed attention, there's 9, levels, right? And at some point of time, in the beginning, if you don't apply these two things, mindfulness and then awareness, if you don't apply these two things, then there are errors that you are, you lose your mindfulness, or you get lost and you don't realize that you have lost. After some time you feel that, I was meditating. Then you come back. So that means you are not applying your awareness, right, and mindfulness. So mindfulness and awareness, these must be the antidote. These are the antidotes for for the sinking mind and distracted mind. Sinking mind and the distracted mind are the two most kind of obstacles in meditation. When you are meditating, right, then immediately you think of something like, it comes in your mind, your friends, your home, or your market, or your workplace, or some kind of thing. It comes. Your mind is distracted. Then the awareness knows that and then brings you back on your object, and the mindfulness keeps your mind on the object, right? So these two obstacles, there is a constant kind of, a confrontation with these two, the sinking mind. When you become sluggish, then at some point the sinking mind, becomes more kind of powerful. Then at some point of time, then you may go to sleep as well. So the sinking mind is the dullness and the too much distraction is excitement, out of excitement. So these two are the obstacles. In order to handle these two obstacles, you have the awareness and mindfulness, right? And then in the beginning you have to apply these two constantly. Even after 2 seconds you get lost, and then you have to bring through your awareness, and through your awareness, fix your mind on the object. You have to do this, right? And then do it again and again and again, and then after that the fixation of the mind, the duration of the mind becomes longer and longer. And then when it becomes quite good, the fixation is quite good, then then you reach at a point that even application of awareness and application of mindfulness itself can be, obstacle. That if you don't need, guard and inspectors, and then if they keep on coming, that is disturbing, right? So similarly, at some point when you do not need, then you can go, your mind is stable enough to go by yourself, right? So these are the kind of, when you meditate, then you have to be very aware that whether your mind is being distracted or not, or you are singing, your mind is singing or not. So you have to be very careful with this, right? So while we are doing this meditation on the impurity of the body, let us meditate on impurity of the body, and then later we will meditate on the impermanence of the body, right? So first, for 5-6 minutes, impurity of the body, just think about, visualize your body and visualize starting from skin and then enter inside. Start from the skin level. If something scratches, then the blood comes out, right? Then go inside. You can find muscles, flesh, and then you can find inner organs, different kinds of inner organs. Observe very minutely each level, and then go into the organs, inside stomach, intestine, visualize as if you're seeing them very vividly. Can these be the object of attraction? Can these be the object of fatuation, to be proud of? See the nature of each of these levels. and then try to see a particular organ inside the body. For example, the stomach. See the walls of the stomach. Go into the walls. And slowly come out of the stomach, and slowly come out of the different layers. And see the body as a whole. Functionable for Dharma practice. Thank you. Visiting the body, now we have seen the impurity of the body, but as I said, we should not ignore and neglect the importance of the body. The very idea behind the understanding of realization of impurity of the body is to avoid rising afflictive mind based on the attractiveness of others' body and one's own body. And then we have the general nature of the body is impermanence, which we all, if asked, then everybody would say that yes, it decays, but there is an innate kind of feeling that I am there and I'll be there and my body is going to be as it is, right? So there is a kind of innate feeling. This is also associated with the feeling of self as permanent, right? So when we look into the body, then in both Theravada and Mahayana tradition, particularly in Theravada tradition, there is the portraits of meditation on impermanence, portrait in the body, dead body, and then how it decays in course of time. It is very beautifully portrayed. So we can see about our own body, you can remember your since young age, and then the body goes, up to 20 years of age, then it becomes, that is almost the climax. And then by between 20 and 25, then it starts decaying. And then gradually it starts decaying. By 20, 30, we don't realize, right? That when we were very young, then we used to think that, the old agedness is something happening with others, not with me, right? So this kind of feeling is there constantly on us. So we need to remind ourselves and feel that how the body decays every moment, every instant, right? So that is also very important to see, and that may finally and lead to some extent to the selflessness also, anatma selflessness. But the meditation on the impermanence itself is very important. In Buddha's teaching, the teaching on impermanence is very, very important, very, very important. Not only your body, but also your relatives, your property, and everything associated with you, and even the universe, at every second, every fraction of the second, it is decaying, disintegrating. And Buddha said that 2,600 years back. And when he said that, he was rejected and then blamed by, all of the philosophical schools unanimously. If you read the text of, the different schools, how they reacted to Buddha. As I said, there was a very strong, rich interaction, very open interaction. The Indian philosophical schools did not grow in parallel. They grew through interaction, enriching each other in a very intensive manner. Right? So when Buddha said that, everybody started saying that this is a crazy idea, that the object that you have been using, the body that you have been having after your birth is still there. You say it is decaying, it is disintegrating every single moment. If it is not a crazy, what is this, idea? And then they have also given an example that if the pot or glass, if it is disintegrating, then how can it hold, water in it? This is, just against the convention. So Buddha was saying that, of course, it holds water, and the water also, every particle of the water disintegrates, and every particle of the glass disintegrates every moment, right? And this idea is extremely important. Why Buddha was metaphysically interested in the metaphysical issues was because that has lots of things to do with our perception and our life and our emotion, right? If we feel that everything is permanent, accordingly we have, different kind of emotions and a perverted view of the world. And then when we lose them, then there is an unbearable kind of, suffering, right? So therefore, these realities are to be introduced on daily basis. And once you understand it and realize it, once you realize that everything is disintegrating every moment, then intellectually you understand it in the beginning, and later it becomes your view, right? Once it becomes your view, then whatever you lose doesn't matter. You don't suffer. You will never suffer. That is because you already accepted the reality, and you have seen the reality that everything is disintegrated, right? Everything is disintegrating every moment, right? So therefore, when whatever, even you lose your body, you are about to lose your body, whatever happens to you, by the nature of, impermanence, then we accept it. Because it has become your view, right? First, when you study and try to understand the nature of law of nature of impermanence, that is the reality about which you study, and then you may not accept it, and difficult to accept. And later, when you accept it and become your view, your personal view, your perspective, then there's no problem at all. There may be scientists who can, divide a second into million fractions and understand that everything is, fragmenting. But when it does not become his own view, then he has the problem of, accepting the impermanence of the object. That is the difference. That if you don't, when it does not become your personal view, when it does not become your perspective, your personal perspective, then there is no much benefit of, the intellectual study or intellectual understanding, right? Once it does not become, your perspective overnight. You have to contemplate, understand, contemplate, and then it is not indoctrination, it is understanding of reality, right? So once it becomes, it has an immense impact on our life, immense impact. If you lose something, if anything happens, but you should be, you should understand that the person becomes careless. It does not mean that, but person becomes more careful, more concerned, right? He gets the, right perspective of the world and himself or herself, right? So therefore, impermanence, understanding of impermanence of body here in this context is important, because we have lots of perverted views associated with our own body, right? We have so many. Our, daily life is full of perverted view associated with our body, taking it as a permanent, not taking it as a, disintegrating every moment, right? That is why it is important to, contemplate and understand and realize it, right? So let us meditate for 5 minutes on the impermanence of the body, right? We have a healthy body. As we age and problems start, marking and standing and ascending the stairs, backache, and things like that. We can see the decay. The other persons can see the decay. And we can feel by ourselves the decay. With the change of color of hair, wrinkles on face and bodies, these are the signs of decay. At the end of the life, when the consciousness departs the body, the body becomes corpse. it starts decaying, hour by hour, day by day. Suppose it is lying in a jungle, then the animals may eat the flesh, or it is left over there. It decays, dries, and eventually only bones remain, and the bones also becomes ashes and dissolves into soil. And those particles may become a part of a plant, so there is a complete disappearance of our body, which is at the moment so precious for every one of us, and we have a feeling of impermanence, taking our body as more durable than it is. The body from the present state to the complete disappearance. It's a journey of the body. Till death. It is a very precious phenomenon, precious thing for us. We are very possessive of that. After that, the body belongs to no one. It disintegrates and dissolves into earth, and nothing remains traceable. In the very, very long run, it may become a part of other universe. Looking into the nature of impermanence, we see the reality of our body totally opposite to what we feel normally. And this is the reality that we have to realize on a regular basis, which is a great method of stopping many of the afflictive mind that arise in association with the body, treating it as, looking it as, perceiving it as permanent. We have seen the body disintegrating every moment. And now we feel within our body, right at the moment, the disintegration is taking place at every level of the body, inside and out, the skin level, the bone level, the inner organ. Everything is disintegrating. Everything is changing. That is to be felt. That is to be felt strongly. Thank you. So the very purpose of this meditation is to realize the reality of the life. We are not, exposing to something that we do not have, but we are exposing or, introducing something that we already have, but we perceive it differently, in a perverted way. The way we should be looking as it is the way we should be looking. And by looking in that way, it is very beneficial. That will stop lots of afflictive mind that arise in association with this kind of perspective, right? So, as I said in the beginning, the entire teaching of Buddha is to reduce afflictive mind and eventually eliminate afflictive mind. The afflictive minds are the things which creates problem, which make us suffering, right? So if we need to address the suffering, then we need to address the causes of the suffering. That is the karma. And karma does not come by itself. The causes of the karmas are the afflictive minds, defilements, and the hatred, attachment, desire, envy, and things like that. All bunch of the afflictive mind. And the very root of afflictive mind is not seeing the reality as it is. That is ignorance of not seeing the things as it is. So as I was trying to say in the beginning, that it was only Buddha who said that there is no permanent, there is no independent, there is no self-sufficient entity out there anywhere, right? Either the object or the person or the mind, whatever. There is nothing which are substantial, which are concrete, which are independent. Everything is interdependent. Everything is, everything is an existent object which has come into existence based on whole network system, right? And then when you go to the level of Madhyamika school, then everything is mentally designated, only nominally, exist. Nothing exists out there. Nothing is there. That is the highest level of philosophy, and which is the highest level of understanding the reality, right? So when we go to that extent and address and try to understand, that can reduce, that can finally eliminate the foundation of the afflictive mind. And once the afflictive mind does not exist there, then the karmas won't arise. Once the karmas don't arise, then you won't have birth. Once you don't have the birth, then you won't be taking birth in the cyclic existence in the samsara. And then one is the person you are liberated. That is the whole spiritual system in Buddhism, right? And when you are looking at it from your perspective, from your individual kind of journey of spirituality, then it is the middle scope person or attainment of nirvana. When you take into account the enlightenment and liberation of the entire sentient being, then that is, you are taking the path of Bodhisattva, the Mahayana, with the motivation of attaining enlightenment or Buddhahood for the benefit of sentient beings. So for that person, for the Bodhisattvas, attainment of enlightenment is not for himself or herself, but that Buddhahood is an instrument to benefit other sentient beings. And for that purpose, he or she is, making attempt to achieve enlightenment or the Buddhahood, right? So this is, in brief, the spiritual system that, in Mahayana, the Mahayana spiritual system, the whole kind of soteriological system is, structured, right? So we can have this in our view, but we cannot jump over there, right? But we have to start from day one, taking a step. If you try to do something, meditate on your body, meditate on your impermanence, that will help us to reduce our afflictive emotions to some extent. You may not think that, you should not think that, oh, I have done this meditation today and for the last few days my affliction is not reducing, so what's the use of doing meditation? It will take time, because it's not that easy. Our afflictive emotions are very deeply rooted in our mind. It's very difficult to uproot them. So it takes time, but once you do practice constantly, then you will get a feeling and understanding, and then a realization that, oh yes, I'm better off than I was 6 months back. And last year I used to have these kind of emotions, and I used to suffer, and then I used to be unhappy, but now I'm better. I can handle these problems. I can handle these situations. After all, the human life is full of predicaments, right? Full of challenging situations. And now your spiritual practice is a test how you can handle these situations. It is, after all, it is a test, and it tells you how to handle these different difficult situations, right? And through your mental kind of spiritual development, which teaches you how to tackle with your negative emotions, how to manage your negative emotions, and cope with the different and critical situations. So today, when you face and handle the situation in a certain manner, after 6 months or 1 year, if you are a little better off in handling them, and if such situations don't create much trouble, then you can feel that I'm better off. These are the rewards of your practice. So then you are moving ahead, right? You should be moving ahead step by step. We should not be thinking that, oh, I have read about bodhicitta, I have read about interdependent and arising and emptiness, and I have meditated few times, I'm not better off. You shouldn't think like that, because these are extremely profound, and then it takes time, right? Even to change a very basic and superficial habit, it takes lots of long time to change. And these negative emotions are deeply rooted in our mind, and it is difficult to not only uproot them but to reduce them, right? So you have to handle it, work on it with mindfulness every time, wherever you are. Then you can, the very best reward is when you have when you are in a very critical situation, it does not move you or it does not shake you, then that is your reward, right? If it does not make you unhappy and it does not shatter you, then that is your reward, right? The auras and lights, and they may come later, but in the beginning you have these kind of qualities, really, and these are highly rewarding. Yeah. Okay, so I will take some questions.
My question is, does this general and specific characteristics general and specific characteristics, can you explain further on what is the general and specific characteristics of the body, mind, and feeling, and also the Dharma.
We will cover the feeling, mind, and Dharma tomorrow, right? And today we have just, covered the body. The general characteristics of the body is like impermanence, right? Impermanence is the general characteristics of all the products, all which are made from, causes and conditions, right? This is a very general characteristic. And now, which is not only, applicable to the body, but also applicable to the, the other materials. But the impurity of the body is particular, specific to the body itself, right? So there are many other things also, like the feeling, and then we will be discussing tomorrow. And after all, what Buddha is teaching in his, discourses is to understand the realities of external world, internal world, your mind. If you understand the realities as it is, that itself reduces lots of problem, right? The more you understand the impermanent nature of your body, the more you understand the impermanent nature of your poverty, the more you understand the impermanence of the external world, then it will give you less problems, right? And when you realize the impermanence with your direct perception, then lots of things are done by that time. Of course, it is not ultimate reality, realization of ultimate reality. The realization of ultimate reality is selflessness or emptiness, right? But the impermanence covers the, product, the impermanent object or the material world. But it does not cover the entire, phenomena, right? But our perspectives, our, life is very much associated with the external world and internal world. From the perspective of, or related with the impermanence of the, material world, there are lots of problems that are associated with that. Once we have a direct realization and proper understanding, not only proper understanding, but the direct realization of the impermanence, then that itself addresses a lots of problems, right? So, not just intellectual understanding, bring it down to the heart, right? We have a good connection between brain and heart, bring it down to the heart, and then, that works, right? Yeah. Any other question? Please, don't hesitate asking questions.
Yep. My question is this. One is hello. Yes, Geshe-la, thank you. There's a meditation that focuses on mindfulness, and also there's another meditation that focuses on awareness. So can you tell us the difference?
Awareness, what do you mean by awareness here? Because here we have been talking about awareness as, two elements of the meditation of mindfulness itself. Awareness is awareness of the, the object, or the awareness of the mind. That when the object is, fixed on the object, and it is distracted or it is singing, at that time the awareness works. The awareness works, and it becomes aware of the fact that your mind is out of the object, and then it brings the object, it brings your mind to the object, and the mindfulness keeps it fixed, right? So this is, in this context, awareness is, the function of awareness is to bring the mind to the object. This is the function of the awareness in this context of mindfulness.
So this,
in general, awareness means just to be aware of. Sometimes, Buddhahood is also termed as a fully awakened state, right? To be aware means just to be aware of what is. There are some meditations like to be aware of things, whatever is going on, but without having any kind of emotional attachment or dissociation. Just to observe things, be aware of whatever is going on. That is a different. That is not a mindfulness. It is a different kind of meditation. Yeah. Here we are doing the meditation in the mindfulness of bodies, feeling, mind, and the phenomena. Right?
Okay. Thank you.
When I try to meditate on impermanence, I feel disgust when I try to visualize the impermanence of the body.
Impermanence or impurity?
Oh, the impurity.
Yeah, impurity. Right.
Then the impermanence, there's a feeling of. How do you say una in English? Huh? Una
is it a Chinese word?
But I don't know what is it in English. Una.
Helpless. I see.
Okay, so when meditate on impermanence, there's like a feeling of
impermanence or impurity.
Yeah. No, the impurity is disgust, like
always in this,
so like that. Then the impermanence part is when I feel like so helpless, as they translated, like when you visualize the impermanence of the body, it will decay, it will rot, and it's like what can I? Because
that's,
so it's but that's feeling
both are good. Both are good.
But then like, because I want to fall asleep, but then I know that there's this still feeling inside. Then I try to visualize, then the feeling come out. Then I want to fall asleep. Then I don't know what I'm doing.
No. What did you say? I didn't hear.
So there's three things happening, right? I'm trying to follow your words to visualize. Then I notice the feeling come out. The feeling of disgust with the impurity and the feeling of helplessness with the impermanence.
Yes.
Then at the same time, I want to fall asleep. I feel sleepy.
Sleep. Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I don't know what I'm doing, and that's why I wanted to ask.
Okay. But both of those feelings, when you went through the visualization, both are good. In the beginning, you should have a disgusting kind of, this is the purpose of the meditation. When you have a feeling of disgusting, then you should keep that, You should not always feel that, this is disgusting, you can throw it away. No, but this is the nature, but we should maintain it, keep it as good, in a very good condition, and then, then serve the purpose of the life, right? And then that reduces our fatuation, that reduces our, being too possessive of our body itself, right? We need to maintain it, right? So therefore this is, and discussing is the purpose of that meditation, right? So that's good. And then helplessness is also to some extent good in the sense that, when it dissolves, and we have because earlier you have a feeling of a purity of the body, and all of a sudden when it changes into that state, with the pus and all blood and things like that, suppose you have a clean, table, and all of a sudden pus, all those things are on the table, then that would be very disgusting, right? So But that gives you a feeling that we do not need to be so much possessive and feeling of purity of our body, right? That is the antidote. That feeling of purity is the perverted view, whereas in reality, this is not the case. So, and then we need to, look into the reality. And in terms of disintegration, again, we have this, all of this feeling of permanence, a rigid, strong, perfect body, and all of a sudden in front of you it dissolves, right? Then there's a feeling of helplessness, right? Naturally there will be a feeling of helplessness. That is because it is totally different from what we have been thinking, right? A perfect and concrete and, substantially existent, impermanent body, and then it dissolved, right? Disappeared. So you are helpless in true sense. But that shows you that what we have been perceiving the body is totally different from what the reality is, right? So keep it doing that. Then we will have, the proper understanding of the body. Accordingly, we can work on our body. Accordingly, it paves the way for our spiritual practice, right? And understanding of the world, understanding of the external world, understanding of the self, understanding of one's own body and mind. Tomorrow we will be, discussing on the, feeling, mind, and phenomena. So that includes almost all of things, And when we have these perverted views, disrupted, and have a right view, then you may not necessarily go into Himalayan caves, but certainly there will be some change in your life, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe-la. So my question is, you talk about the kind of awareness called the vigilance, watching the mind, especially the laxity and excitement of the mind. How is that watching the mind, self-watching the mind, different from the Chitta Matra, where they say that, there's a self-awareness, a self-knowing mind, and this is rejected by Prasangika. How is it different?
It's very different, That Chitta Matran's, self-awareness is with every mental phenomena, is with every, episode of mind. But here, as you must be knowing about the Chaitasikas, the mental factors, we have so many mental factors, right? And while I'm speaking, there are, several mental factors, and within that mental factor, there is, the awareness, or sometimes it is translated as alertness, or whatever it may be, but there is a mental aspect which watches. You can feel that, while you are doing meditation, there is a part of the mind which watches. You can understand that you have, digradated, or you have distracted your mind from the object. Who understands that? That is, there is a mental factor which, observes that. And that awareness or the alertness, the mental factor, can bring your mind to the object. But these two are very different. You can say that that one is a very major kind of the philosophical stand, in which the Vijnanavad has assertion of being the mind as a self-reflexive in the sense that it observes itself, right? That's very different. We will have the last question, please.
Geshe-la, I have some like a disagreement with my colleague, and when I realized that there's some anger arising in me, and when I realized that is a mindfulness or is it a awareness?
When you realized that?
Yeah.
What did you realize?
When I realized that like anger is slowly arising in me, so that one before I react to any action. So.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay. So this one, is it mindfulness or is it awareness? Because before I acted anything on this anger, sort of anger arising.
When you realize that it is because of the anger that you have, right? And about this we will talk tomorrow, because that comes within the mindfulness of mind, right? On the object of mind is very important. But while you are, while you realize that that dispute or whatever uncomfortable situation would have arisen, that is because of your anger, then it is not, it is a general awareness of the situation, but not particularly the awareness that we are talking here, right? What we are talking here is a vigilant mental factor which keeps watching your mind where it is going, whether it is going on the right way or it is going on towards the wrong path. That is the vigilant kind of mental factor. Right? We will talk about that tomorrow. Okay, thank you.